All right, welcome to the step-by-step explainer where we're going to break down the exact calculations behind the SASB real estate energy management metrics for your portfolio. If you want a full tutorial on how to calculate your energy consumption data coverage, track the true percentage of your renewable versus grid electricity, and accurately report on your eligible portfolios with Energy Star certifications, you are absolutely in the right place. So let's just dive right in. Now, as real estate sustainability professionals, you already know the corporate disclosure landscape is maturing incredibly fast. Reporting under the SASB standards, which, by the way, are now officially housed under the IFRS Foundation, requires strict adherence to standardized data. We're way past the point of just estimating things. Today, it's all about rigorous, auditable accounting. But before we get into the heavy math, let's take a step back and remember exactly why this matters. We aren't just crunching these numbers to satisfy a reporting framework. Effectively managing your asset's energy performance literally reduces operating costs and drives tenant demand. Think about it. Tenants want to control their own costs, right? And they want to maintain their own resource conservation reputations. Ultimately, hitting these metrics directly drives your asset's value appreciation. So here is our playbook for today. We'll start with the energy management imperative, calculate your data coverage, track your energy mix, hit on Energy Star portfolio reporting, and finish up with the overall value of efficiency. Starting with Section 1, the energy management imperative, and why it matters. We really want to ground these technical standards in the real-world impact they have on your real estate assets. Let's jump into Section 2, calculating data coverage under metric AFR 30A.1. This is our first real tutorial metric where we calculate your energy consumption data coverage as a percentage of your total floor area. The absolute foundation of this calculation is your gross floor area. That acts as your baseline measurement. It's literally the total property area in square meters, measured between the principal exterior surfaces of the enclosing fixed walls. Now, the standard actually gives us some really helpful flexibility here. If you just don't have the gross number available for a specific building, you can swap in leasable floor area instead. Or if you happen to be in the apartment or lodging sectors, you can even just use the number of units. The math itself, pretty straightforward, but it is incredibly strict. Step 1. You take the floor area where you have complete data for all the energy types consumed. Step 2. Identify the total portfolio floor area that actually uses energy. And Step 3. Just divide Step 1 by Step 2 to find your percentage. The really crucial takeaway here is this. If a portion of your floor area consumes both electricity and natural gas, but you only have data for the electricity, that floor area is considered to have incomplete coverage. You cannot include it in your numerator. It's totally all or nothing for that specific square meter. Now, obviously, the SASB standard completely acknowledges the gray areas in real estate reporting. Your data coverage might vary wildly, and that usually depends on whether you only have access to base building data versus tenant space data. It also heavily depends on whether energy is purchased by the landlord or directly by the tenant, which is often totally out of your hands. The standard allows you to openly describe these variations, shedding light on logistical barriers, lease structures, or even geographical utility policies that are putting a wall between you and your data collection. Moving right along to Section 3, tracking your energy mix under metric IFR-138.2. Now that we know our data coverage, let's figure out exactly what kind of energy is powering that floor area. Because tracking your total energy in gigajoules is just the start, you have to explicitly break down where that energy is actually coming from. Investors are looking closely at your exposure to fossil fuels versus clean energy. We basically need to separate your consumption into two buckets, grid electricity and renewable energy. Grid electricity is exactly what it sounds like, power you purchase directly from the local utility grid. Renewable energy, on the other hand, comes from sources replenished at a rate equal to or greater than their depletion. But here is a massive caveat. You have to exclude the renewable portion of the standard electricity grid mix that falls outside your entity's direct control. For this metric, we only care about what you are actively procuring or generating yourself. To actually classify as renewable under the standard, the energy has to come from acceptable sources. We're talking geothermal, wind, solar, or hydro. And that includes both self-generated power on site, as well as purchased renewable power agreements. Biomass works too, but it absolutely must be certified to a third-party standard, like the Forest Stewardship Council. Okay, pay super close attention here, because this is a really common reporting trap. If you generate solar power on site, but you sell the associated renewable energy certificates, the RECs, you absolutely cannot claim that energy as renewable in this metric. No way around it. For any renewable electricity generated on-site or purchased through an agreement, those RECs must be retained and retired on behalf of your entity. If you don't do that, you're double counting. So let's look at the math to see how this bills out. To track your mix, first calculate your total energy consumed in gigajoules. Make sure you use higher heating values to standardize any fuels you're using. Then simply divide your grid electricity by that total. Finally, divide your valid REC-backed renewable energy by the total. You just apply these conversion factors consistently and report the percentages separately for each property sector in your portfolio. All right, Section 4 in our playbook. Energy Star Portfolio Reporting, metric IFR 130A.4. Let's calculate the percentage of your eligible portfolio that holds an energy rating and is officially certified to Energy Star. While Energy Star is obviously the gold standard for the US and Canada, the framework totally recognizes that real estate is a global game, so it accepts equivalent global schemes. Think the EU's energy performance certificates, Australia's neighbors, or New Zealand's neighbors NZ. The main rule here is that the rating has to be officially in effect during the reporting period, meaning pre-assessments do not count. To calculate your Energy Star certification percentage specifically for your U.S. properties, you just take your certified gross floor area in the U.S. that has an active certification and divide it by your total gross floor area in the U.S. It's a very simple calculation. And hey, if you have properties in Canada, the standard lets you calculate and disclose that percentage separately using the exact same formula. Now, this next rule is a real game changer because this is where you can actively optimize your reporting. A super vital nuance is that you can actually exclude specific square footage from your denominator. If a property sector or a specific use characteristic makes a building totally ineligible for an Energy Star rating, you just remove it from the total. The same goes if a property is in a geographical location where energy ratings simply aren't available. Take it out of the denominators so it doesn't artificially drag down your overall percentage. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, the value of efficiency. Let's wrap up this explainer by connecting these precise calculations back to your overarching strategic goals. Look, tracking your data coverage, rigorously breaking down your renewable versus grid mix, and managing certifications isn't just a dry compliance exercise. The standard emphasizes that building energy performance is a massive driver of tenant demand. By nailing these metrics, you're providing the exact auditable data that investors need to see. You're proving how you lower operating costs, mitigate exposure to energy regulations, and attract premium tenants who actually care about resource conservation. So as you look at your own portfolio data tonight, analyzing those base buildings versus your tenant spaces, you really have to ask yourself, are your real estate assets actively positioned to capitalize on efficiency, or are they hiding costly inefficiencies? By mastering these SASB energy management calculations, you transform raw data into a tangible strategic advantage. Go get your data coverage complete, secure those RECs, and start optimizing your asset value. Thanks for learning with us today.